I know you fucking lying. Somebody please wake me up from this goddamn nightmare that I'm living daily since this mother got in office. Segregation. Did y'all hear the latest? That he's trying to segregate us again. Black and white water fountains, black and white bathrooms, blacks, whites, segregation. That's what that means. Do you know what happened back in the day when they did that with all the riots and all the stuff that was going on? That was a different time. Do you know what would happen if that was done in these days and times? Y'all just don't understand. But I believe it's a bigger picture. And you know why I believe it's a bigger picture? Because we are being distracted by all these things that's coming up. Every day is something different. Distractions. Allegedly, while they're stealing and robbing us blind. It's a distraction for us to concentrate on all this other stuff that they have going on while they're stealing from us. Nobody's looking at that because he's giving us worse scenarios. Well, I tell you what, anybody that's agreeing on this, we know your stand when it comes to racism. And you need to take a look in the mirror and admit who you are. We cannot live in a segregated world. You know why? Because we're not segregated. We all walk around this earth freely. And why are the minorities being targeted? Why? Mexicans deported. Now segregation with black people. Are you kidding me? And you people still can't see that we are living under a racist president? And y'all are letting it happen? Where in the hell is Congress? Where in the hell is the Supreme Court? Where in the hell is the Senate? What are you people going to do about this? When are you going to get some fucking balls and stand up, you spineless motherfuckers? Fight! No one is above the law. And the only thing that's going to happen is a whole bunch of bullshit and nobody going to live in peace. Because they got a new kind of black people today. It ain't that bullshit from back in the day. Now, I'm tired of people fucking with me. I'm tired of people fucking with my people. I'm tired of people fucking with the mix. I'm tired of it. You fucking bully. You fucking orange bully. And it's time. Somebody better handle this motherfucker. Congress, Senate, I don't give a fuck. Y'all better do something. Because this getting too much out of hand. And we all know why. Allegedly. So y'all can rob us fucking blind. Rob us blind. Because this motherfucker going broke. So the money got to come from somewhere. So let's distract them. This shit is getting tiresome. Y'all better do something. Somebody better, y'all better get some fucking balls and do something. Or what the fuck you in office for? What the fuck you sitting in that seat for? If y'all not gonna do nothing to stop this goddamn tyrant. I'm tired. I'm fucking tired. And a whole lot of other people getting tired. Y'all better fucking do something. Because this ain't for the motherfucking people.
You see, there is something that Malcolm X was hated for, you know. Malcolm X is a gentleman who was very much fighting for the rights of black people. And Malcolm X was a man who was, he was really a pioneer that black people of America should have their own state, you know. He called this separation. The blacks should be separated from the whites because he perceived that the ongoing tensions that were happening during that time, which are still happening today, would somehow lead to annihilation or maybe an extinction of black people, you know. So the US was just to make a state separate for the black people, you understand? But the government refused, and actually Malcolm X was assassinated, right? So today, it has passed many years, and Jim Crow came to pass even before Malcolm X. And now again, Donald Trump has brought back Jim Crow's law, where he wants segregation. He wants segregation in schools, segregation in churches, segregation in work, construction, whichever kind of work, there should be segregation, you know. And this is sick. This is very, very sick. And what makes it even more sicker is because black people wanting segregation, you know. They don't want separation, but they want segregation. Malcolm X was calling for separation, not segregation. These are two different things. But black people, they want segregation, but they don't want separation. And this is sick. Black people should be separated. Ideally, separation is being separate from those people, you know, having your own country, having your own things that you do. But it is not that they are not welcomed. We don't have segregation where this belongs to this race, this, no. There is no categorization. Of course, segregation is about categorization. What's sickening me right now is that black people want segregation and they don't want separation. It makes me think that Malcolm X died in vain, you know. You see, it's sick. It's sick how much that man could see far, and now black people are betraying him. You see, I want us to watch it. I want us to watch this video, get a glimpse. I shall get back with the deep critical analysis. Yeah.
I'm re-recording this message for quality purposes only. I want to make sure that the algorithm picks up this video and pushes it out as much as possible. I need every person of color, every black person to hear this video, to hear this message, okay? The Trump administration is looking to reinstate segregation for its federal workers, okay? Segregation, to which I literally said in my last video, and I'm going to say it again. Bring back segregation if you want to. Bring it back if you want to. You want to play them games? We can play them games. And like always, go and fact check this. You can find it on ABC News. You can find it on Politico, not political, but Politico.com. You can find it on usnews.com and etc. Now, this is coming directly from the article, okay? Let's read. Segregated facilities could make a comeback as Trump's administration lifts discrimination ban on federal contracts. According to a public memo from General Services Administration, the GSA, the federal government will no longer prohibit contractors from having segregated waiting rooms, restaurants, and water fountains in order to secure government contracts. The memo reportedly states when issuing new solicitations or contracts, do not include any of the following provisions or clauses. The prohibition of segregated facilities. This move aligns with President Trump's broader executive order to repel diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI initiatives within the government and across the country. Now companies will have more leeway to decide whether or not to have segregated facilities, which include restrooms, restaurants, waiting areas, parking lots, and locker rooms. And like I said in the last video, please don't threaten us with a good time. Please don't threaten us with a good time. Bring back segregation if you want to. Bring back segregation if you want to. Let our black teachers educate our black students. Let our black physicians treat our black patients. Let our black bankers and accountants help manage and help black people better manage their money. Let our black athletes, okay, play for their own black teams. All right. Let our black people represent us in the Olympic Games. Bring it back all the way. Don't make it just a federal thing. Don't make it just a federal thing. Bring it back nationwide. Bring it back nationwide, because I promise you the black people of today are not the black people of back then. We didn't know any better. Now that we know what your spaces looks like, we don't give a fuck about being included in your spaces. How about that? This is not the game that you want to play. This is not the game that you want to play. I promise you, the black community, you see how we're thriving right now? Just minding our business. We're not even doing anything. We're just minding our business. We all collectively said we're not coming outside for any of you people. And we're good. My bank account is thriving. I know a lot of other black people whose bank accounts is thriving right now. I promise you, bring back segregation. And you know what? I'm going to even call your bluff. Bring back segregation for federal workers, and you don't even have to make an announcement about it being nationwide. We'll do it for you. We will do it for you. We will move in accordance to what you've started. I promise you that. Let it be let it be federal. Let any of our black federal workers be like, yeah, so they've officially started segregation. Word? We bringing that shit on the outside too. We bringing that on the outside too. We have black-owned restaurants. We have black-owned businesses. All we need is to get our Black Wall Street up and running again. And this time, we dare y'all to try to burn that shit down. Blood will be shed, baby. Blood will be shed, I promise you. So go ahead. Go ahead. Play if you want to. I'm telling you, outside of all the atrocities that Donald Trump will commit within these next 4 years, one of the things he will be accredited for is finally uniting all black people. All black people. I promise you that. I promise you that. Bring it all the way the fuck back. Let us go back in history. We have been separating our black dollars from you. Please, we would love to be able to separate our talent too. We would love to be able to separate our talent too. Let's see who really is the superior race.
Okay, so I have historical thoughts. The year is 2025. And we are going backwards. So while he's out here banning books about Black American history, he's deciding that segregation is no longer being banned at the federal level. Because, I mean, why the fuck not? So there's a segregation clause at the federal level that is to prohibit segregation in federal facilities, right? I'm sorry, public facilities. The clause is the Federal Acquisition Regulation, which is also known as FAR. And it says it prohibits segregated facilities. You cannot segregate facilities as work areas, restaurants, drinking fountains, transportation, housing, and more. It says you can't segregate based on race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and national origin. Remember when I said on my larger page years ago that if they come for the Reconstruction Amendments, black people would be in big trouble? And people were like, no, he'll never do that. It's because of the Constitution. It'll never come down. Now he has gone after the 14th Amendment, which is a Reconstruction Amendment, which impacts black people's citizenship in this country. And now he's bringing back segregation. But we're just, yeah. And then you had all these Trump supporters and all these non-voters who were saying that we were making everything about race. No, everything has always been about race in America. Everything has been about race in this country since its inception. And telling black people that they should get over it was always a slap in the face and such a reminder how much people did not understand American history and how racism is woven into the very fabric of this country. But I want to remind y'all that racism wasn't a deal breaker for a lot of you. And here we are, March of 2025, facing segregation. And some people are like, oh, well, we need to be separate anyway. We want our own and all this. No, you don't understand. Integration wasn't just about trying to integrate into white spaces. No, it was not. It was about resources. So when it comes to segregating things like housing, it doesn't just mean you have a black neighborhood, you have a white neighborhood. No. It means you have certain resources within certain neighborhoods that are not going to be accessible. It means that certain schools will not get the tax credits to fund these schools, to make sure that children have proper education, access to food and materials that they need, access to special needs services. The man is literally bringing us back to Jim Crow. He said he would do it. They wrote Project 2025. They told us they were going to do it. And here we are in the midst of going back to the 1950s. And some of you were like, well, if it was me and I was up in that time, they would have never did that. You want to know what you would be doing? If you lived through Jim Crow, you would be doing exactly what you're doing right now. People voted for him even to their own detriment because they hated black people. They truly hated black people. It wasn't about the economy. It wasn't about eggs. It wasn't about jobs. It wasn't about none of that. It was about the simple fact that y'all hated black people. And a black man had the audacity to be president. And a black woman had the audacity to be vice president.
and you could not stand it. So now we're going back to segregation. And if you think it can't happen at the state level, do you not know what these red states are doing? We have Greg Abbott here in Texas, who is so far up 47's taint, he needs an enema. We are here because America could not stand the idea that having a black woman in leadership was too much. And your hatred for black women, black people, was greater than the idea of being led by a black woman. That's why we are here.
They can bring back segregation if they want to. They can. Probably not going to work out for them. I'm from the Deep South. I'm from Slidell, Louisiana. And according to my grandmother, my ancestors used to terrorize racists in the city. Do your homework. 2, I lived in North Dakota for 2 years. And I witnessed firsthand some of them white boys trying to be racist. And I asked them how that worked for them. I'm sure if you post my face and this goes viral, some of the white boys in North Dakota remember.
The Trump administration has just removed a federal ban on contractors from having segregated restaurants, waiting rooms, and drinking fountains. This is a result of Trump's executive order to combat DEI. You're probably DEI too. Trump, we know what you're trying to do. We appreciate the segregation. We're fine with it. But we know what you're trying to do. All you're trying to do is get black people upset. You're trying to get us to get out here in these streets and act a fool. Well, guess what, Trumpster? Guess what, orange man? You orange menace, you. We're not going to fall for it. We're standing 10 toes down on keeping our black asses in this goddamn house and minding our black ass business. So keep on coming with the fuckery. You're not going to get us, okay? We know your games, orangey, okay? But thank you for the segregation. We appreciate it. We want to know who fuck with us and who don't. We don't want to be in spaces that we not welcome. So please put the signs up. White only. Put them up. Put them up.
As a black American, I 100% stand with segregation in America. This was actually the Most High's decree. We weren't supposed to mix with the outsiders. We all know who the outsiders are. Those same outsiders augmented our history, stole our wealth, stole our land, stole our pride and our spirits from up under us, simply for integrating them in our system. But you see, segregation will bring everything that we lost back and then some. Segregation is our reparations. Black people are the majority, Spanish, the Mexicans included. We are the majority in this world. We are the biggest consumers in this world. And so, for the longest, Caucasians have taken advantage of the fact that we are the majority. So they sell exclusively to us. We are the reason why they are rich. We are buying their products to make them rich. If we go back to segregation and we start owning our own products and we start exclusively selling to our own, then we become millionaires overnight. We control the market overnight. We weed them out of their own system because now we hold the keys. For the longest time, they've had their own in leadership while black people push the workforce and the labor force in order for them to become rich while we receive pennies to a dollar. COVID woke the world up when they realized that essential workers, those essential workers were black people majority of the time in the Spanish. Because the labor force is pushed by us. And when black folks stop going to work, and those white leaders that were controlling those companies had to come in and get their hands dirty, they lost millions of dollars. They cannot keep up that workload with just them because they don't have the manpower or the skill set to do it. They can tell you what to do and use your godliness in order to get the job done. And then when y'all get the job done, they take all your resources and give you scraps. But segregation, us having our own, even if they try to pull a move like, hey, y'all money is in these white people banks, so you can't take your money out. That's fine. That is fine. This is what happens when you decide to do that. If you try to withhold our money through segregation, you don't think they're going to boycott the banks, the businesses, like they did Target, and have them bankrupt in months? Think about what's going on. Think about us being the majority. Because if the majority of us pull our money out of the bank, or if the majority of us decide to create our own banks, segregated from them, and there are millions and millions of us, and their population is on the decline because they're technically clones that came in our world via orphan train, Holocaust, and the Great Migration that was less than 100 years ago. If we pull out all of our assets from them and go segregated, they go extinct. This is why they're crashing out. They're the only ones that really deep down do not want segregation. Because then they know black people are not going to buy their products and come in their stores. And then black people are only going to visit other black people. And they're only going to do business with other black people and other Spanish people. And next thing you know, these white people who are on the market trying to sell something is going to be cut short because we're not going to do business with you ever again. Because now this is the time to X you out of our history. Now is the time for us to bring the world back to where it was. Technology is at the lowest it's ever been. Now, with black leaders who were the originators of the inventions that we see today, now they can get their merits back. And now we can expand on what we started on year one when we were here, when we were segregated then.
Now, after clearly watching this video, which is more of a revelation, it's also more of a lamentation, you know. It's not good. Segregation is not a good thing. Yeah, even those blacks who are saying they want segregation, they really don't know the full impact of it, you know, because most of them never lived, or most of us never lived through Jim Crow. Most of us, a few, and if there is any, they are very old, you know, close to the end of their days. Now, I want us to have a deep critical analysis of this video based on what Malcolm X said, because I was basing all this on Malcolm X's idea of separation, not segregation. Segregation involves categorization, but separation is not categorization. That gentleman, you know, that gentleman, Malcolm X, wanted separation from the white people, but we could still use the same. Maybe if we were at work, we would use the same, you know, washrooms, hotels, rooms. There would be no whites only, blacks, no. That's different. So here is what Malcolm X said about separation. So this Malcolm X is one of the most influential leaders of the civil rights area. He drew a clear distinction between separation and segregation. He argued that while segregation was a system of oppression which was imposed by a dominant group, separation was an act of self-determination by the oppressed, you know. So separation was like a reaction towards segregation, which was implemented towards black people. You understand? So this distinction remains relevant when analyzing the Jim Crow era and the Trump's administration policies, as both involves racial division but under different justifications and implementation. Malcolm X, what's his idea on separation? Malcolm X defined segregation as a system where a dominant group, which he quoted, white Americans, imposed social, economic, and political disadvantages on black communities. Segregation meant forced exclusion, with white supremacy dictating every aspect of black life, from schools to neighborhood to job opportunities. Segregation was a tool of oppression designed to keep black people at a lower social status, enforced through legal means, which was Jim Crow laws, It was violent, which, with Jim Crow, there was a lot of lynching of black people and police brutality. Conversely, separation, as said by Malcolm X, he saw it as an act of empowerment. He argued that black people should voluntarily separate from white society to build their own businesses, schools, and institutions free from oppression. So unlike segregation, where white people controlled the terms, separation would be a conscious decision by black communities to become self-sufficient, rejecting dependency on a racist system. He saw separation as a step towards true independence, akin to how a colonized nation seeks liberation from its colonizers. Now, how was segregation under Jim Crow's law? The Jim Crow law, which was in the 19th century to the 1960s, was a legal system built to enforce white supremacy. Black Americans were forced into inferior schools, denied access to quality jobs, and subjected to violence for challenging racial hierarchies. The government upheld segregation through separate but equal laws, which in reality ensured that black families, or rather black facilities, were underfunded and inferior. Segregation was not about giving black Americans their own space. It was about controlling them and denying them equal access to the benefits of the society. In contrast to Malcolm X's idea of voluntary separation, Jim Crow segregation was designed to keep black Americans economically dependent and politically powerless. Laws restricted voting rights through literacy tests and poll taxes, while racial terror groups like the Ku Klux Klan, enforced white dominance through violence. So Trump is trying to wake up a very old demon, a demon that has terrorized black Americans and black people. Trump's policies and modern segregation. Although Trump's administration did not reinstate Jim Crow's laws, many of its policies mirrored the racial division of that era. Trump's rhetoric and policies reinforced modern segregation not through explicit laws but through economic and social barriers. First one was housing discrimination. Trump attempted to weaken the Fair Housing Act, which was designed to prevent racial discrimination in real estate. The second one is voter suppression. Like Jim Crow laws, Trump's era policies has sought to suppress black and minority voters. Tactics included stricter voter ID laws, purging voter rolls, and reducing polling places in black communities. These efforts, paralleled the literacy test and poll taxes of the past, aimed at disenfranchising, black voters. Now the third one is racialized policing and immigration. The Trump administration approach to policing, especially the defense of law enforcement, racialized policing and immigration, Now the Trump administration approach to policing, especially its defense of law enforcement against black protesters, reflected the racial control mechanism of the Jim Crow era, you know. His immigration policies, particularly the Muslim ban and family separation at the border, further emphasized racial exclusion, reinforcing the ideas of who belongs in America. The fourth one was economic exclusion. The administration of Trump, and also he employed administration tax cuts, primarily which benefited the wealthy, worsening economic inequality. The wealthy in this case is Elon Musk, you know. So these affected black people disproportionately. Remember the time of the COVID-19, you know? The COVID-19 response was also exposed systemic racial disparities, as black and Latino communities suffered the most impact without sufficient government aid. Let's have a conclusion to all this. Malcolm X's concept of separation was about empowerment and self-reliance, while segregation, whether Jim Crow or Trump, was about control and subjugation. Jim Crow laws explicitly segregated black Americans, while Trump-era policies created structural segregation through economic barriers, you know, voter suppression and policing. Both systems served the same function, maintaining white supremacy by limiting black progress. Malcolm X's ideas remain relevant today as black communities continue to fight against modern segregation and systemic racism. While full separation may not be the chosen path, his call for self-sufficiency, economic independence, and resistance to white-dominated institutions still resonates in the struggle for racial justice. Yeah. So guys, I hope we get enlightened through all this. Remember, this is just a temporary thing. It shall come to pass. Nothing is permanent. It shall come to pass. Once you understand that concept, you should be able to know that you will overcome any challenges. Black people, we are with you. Here in Africa, you are not alone, and we love you. See you in the next one.